Swadika, very good evening and welcome to Thai PBS World Tonight. I'm Nabunag.
I'm Tulip Naksomphoplan. We will start the program tonight with the news about COVID-19 outbreak in Thailand. But in the second half of the show, we will talk about the first day of censure debate that's going on right now at the Thai Parliament.
And today, Thailand has recorded 72 new infections today, and that is the lowest number in 3 weeks. And as you can see that for the past few days, we're seeing triple digits, and today's the first day that we're seeing a double digit. The CCSA may consider easing restrictions in high-risk venues next Monday as the situation gradually improves, with 72 new COVID-19 infections being recorded today. The spokesperson, Dr. Thawissin Visnuyotin, said that in Samut Sakhon province, which had been the hotbed of infections since mid-December, only 16 new cases were found today, and the remaining 53 cases were found in other provinces, with no new infections in Bangkok. However, he stressed that proactive screening is still needed in Samut Sakhon, Pathum Thani, and some parts of Bangkok, adding that 48 new cases were found in Pathum Thani today, pushing total infections in the province to 310 since December 18th. Of the new infections today, there are 3 new imported cases and the rest were local transmissions. The cumulative infections since early last year are 24,786 with 23,563 recoveries and 82 deaths so far. Investigations show that most of them engaged in activities which made them vulnerable to getting infected, such as living together in the same dorm, working and eating together, and standing together in the cases involving security guards. During the meeting of the CCSA sub-panel today, Dr. Thawissin said they discussed a proposition to ease restrictions on certain activities, such as allowing audiences at competitive sports events. Meanwhile, in Samut Sakhon province, Deputy Governor Thirapat Khatchamat, acting on behalf of the governor, ordered the extension of the closure of the central shrimp market until the end of this month to allow businesses to improve conditions in the market to meet hygiene standards set by the Provincial Communicable Disease Committee. Commercial buildings and dormitories in and around the central shrimp market are also required to make improvements to reduce congestion, especially in dorms. According to the order, the Provincial Communicable Disease Committee will check to make sure that improvements are made before trading is allowed to resume at the market.
Now let's talk about Chulalongkorn University. The total number of cases found at Chulalongkorn University campus is now 22. It's university staff and also some students. The 22 infection cases have been found most among university staff, while the virus was found on the surfaces of finger and facial scanners. This is from the press briefing by the Bangkok Metropolitan Administration or BMA. And because of the infection found in Chulalongkorn University, the official has been doing the proactive screening at Solong Market, which is a popular place for CU staff and students. So 437 people have been screened and tested, and no additional infections were identified. BMA first reported 13 infected cases on the CU campus on February 9th, one of whom is a frequent visitor to the dormitory, and another 12 are university staff. There are 230 additional people considered to be at high risk. BMA also tested 20 commonly touched surfaces and found coronavirus on the finger and face scanners used by security guards. So the university said right now they are using, I would say, traditional way of checking who coming in and who getting out of work. They have the head of the department just check out the attendance, check out the name, calling now, and check on the paper using pens instead of using finger scan or facial scan, because that is part of the places that they found the trace of coronavirus. Meanwhile, the spokesperson of CCSA, Dr. Thawissin, said that during the daily press briefing that most of the cases are working people in the 40 to 59 age group, and most of them develop cough, fatigue, and muscle pains.
And moving on from Chulalongkorn University, Thammasat University has also found new infections as well. And Thammasat University reported that there are 2 COVID-19 cases so far. That includes 1 member of university staff at the Faculty of Law and 1 medical student. So both of them are now receiving treatment in hospitals right now. The medical student at the Rangsit campus became infected when he was in contact with an infected outpatient at the Thammasat University Hospital on February 9th. The university also screened 60 other people deemed to be at risk, 55 of whom tested negative, and 5 others are waiting for their test results. The university has instructed all at-risk people to quarantine for 14 days. Anyone who considers themselves at risk or might be at risk should contact the university's Rangsit campus immediately. And right now it's time for a recap of the first day of the censure debate.
So we have to officially welcome Kun Thepachai with us today, just to give us the recap and some analysis of the censure debate. Today is the day of the Prime Minister.
That's right.
Yep.
It's only the first day of the 4 days of no confidence debate. And the opposition has promised fireworks, right?
Yes.
And
And the leader of the opposition party, Pheu Thai, Kun Sompong Mamvivat today, even described the ongoing censure debate as the beginning of the end of the Prayut government.
Right.
He was so confident of all the evidence that the opposition has, that he believes that it can really pin down the Prime Minister and spell an end to his government. But unfortunately, instead of a bang, the first day of the debate turned out to be a whimper.
I would say that the information they presented was somewhat interesting.
Interesting, but they certainly were not able to come up with concrete evidence to back up the accusation. We heard a litany of accusations, but they are the same old accusations that we have been hearing over the past several weeks anyway.
Yeah.
Nothing new, but we had expected at least to see some concrete evidence to back up these accusations. But somehow there was a lot of rhetoric, a lot of accusations, for example, that the Prime Minister lacks leadership, lacks vision. So what is new about this accusation, right? We've been hearing this all along. And this is not the first no confidence censure against the government. It's the second one, right? And we heard the same old things before last year when nothing new
today.
So it's more like a repeat of the same accusations compared to the previous censure debate last year. So it's like Prayut is not a good prime minister. It's the same old
That's
thing.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
So is there any case in the past that the no confidence debate actually lead to really impeachment?
No, it never happened before in Thai political history that a no confidence debate would end up in a government being sort of expelled.
Yeah.
Of course, there were some consequences after some of the no confidence debates that would lead to that kind of doomsday scenario, but not with the vote itself.
Right.
And especially for this government, there is practically no way that the opposition can topple the government through the parliamentary process, because the Prayut government commands a very convincing majority in the House.
Right.
So all the 10 members of the cabinet members who are targets of the censure debate, including the Prime Minister, would easily sail through the vote.
But it seems like the Prime Minister as well as 9 other ministers have the same accusations. Is there lack of leadership here? What does it mean here?
It's quite interesting because the 10 cabinet members, including the Prime Minister, who are targets of the censure, constitute 1/3 of the cabinet members.
Yeah.
Right.
And if 1/3 of the cabinet members are accused of being incompetent, of engaging in corruption, engaging in cronyism, and then lacked good governance. So it simply means, in the eyes of the opposition, that the whole government shouldn't be there
Right.
in the first place, right? If you have 1/3 of the cabinet members, so bad.
Yeah, I thought we were expecting evidence to prove that they lack leadership and also other accusations that have been listed in the media so far.
So far, we haven't seen or heard any convincing evidence yet, but don't forget that this is only the first day. And they are devoting the first today and probably many more hours tomorrow on attacking the Prime Minister himself alone. And then by tonight, they're waiting for prime time.
Right.
I mean, the opposition is quite clever. They know that, say, about 8 o'clock, after the nightly news, then people will be at home, relaxing, and then be ready to tune
Right.
in to listen to their
Right.
rhetoric.
So there should be some interesting evidence, hopefully, coming up in next hour, you
That's
think?
right. Hopefully, because it would be nothing if the opposition cannot really come up with convincing evidence to back up their rhetoric. But of course, I mean, the accusations against the Prime Minister today are quite serious. They're serious accusations.
Right.
For example, they accuse the Prime Minister of having turned a blind eye to ongoing corruption. Kun Sompong Amamiwat, the opposition leader, even described what's going on now as the mother of all corruption. that the scale of corruption under the Prayut watch is simply unprecedented. So and he hinted that in the next few days there will be evidence coming up to back up the charges. Yeah.
What do you think about the accusation of tax evasion that Gao Klai or what's it called, Future Forward?
Yeah.
Not Future
Move
Forward,
Forward.
Move Forward
Party.
Party said in the parliament before that he...
Yeah, this is another one of the same old stories that have been sort of revived again, because she was referring to the accusation that the Prime Minister evaded taxes because since his retirement back in 2014, he still continues to live in the residence inside the army compound, right?
Yep.
It was a big story a few months ago, and the case went to the Constitutional Court, which decided in his favor by basing its decision on the fact that there are regulations of the army that allow the army to provide free lodging, free utilities to, outgoing or former army chiefs who have proved themselves to have done good services for the country, and Kun Prayut fits that category. So legally speaking, Kun Prayut is sort of is absolved for that. But today the point that you raised was about the statement by one of the young upcoming MPs of the Move Forward Party, claiming that even though the Prime Minister has been absolved by the Constitutional Court, but the fact that he didn't pay a single baht for the rent and the
Right.
utilities, and that means that that should have been considered his income, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
his income that should be taxable. But the fact that he hasn't really paid a single baht in taxes either, it only means that he has been evading taxes.
But there is nothing new from the previous censure debate. It means that the result of it shouldn't produce anything differently. And you said that we're going to have to wait for a prime time at 8 to hopefully have something interesting.
Yeah.
Is that mean the whole day it just shouldn't even happen?
I don't know how the opposition planned the sequence of,
Right.
of the debate, right? But I don't think they had a good start. Some of these supposed to be star speakers of the day, especially Kun Seri Pisu,
Right.
the former police chief and now the leader of the Seri Rum Thai party, didn't do quite well. He was trying too hard to pin the Prime Minister down with charges of conniving with operators of gambling dens.
Right.
But somehow he ended up, shooting himself in the foot, trying to promote his own glory from
what
the
he
past.
has done in
What
the
he has done in
past,
the
right.
past. And then he was interrupted multiple times. I would say a dozen of times at least by government MPs who found him to be out of line in trying to say things that were not supposed to be on the agenda.
I would say what he was talking about, the gambling den and the whole network, it's more like a picture he painted for the police department instead of the Prime Minister.
That's true.
more.
That's true. He was telling the Prime Minister that the way to deal with gambling den, you should do the way I did.
Right.
Right.
by conducting daring raids on gambling dens without any fears. But he didn't really touch on the policy aspect of how these things should be dealt with. Yeah.
Will there be a chance that they would actually mention who has really been involved with the illegal gambling dens? Because previously we have seen reports that there were some politicians that were actually involved.
No, he didn't. No names were mentioned, and I don't think there will be names mentioned in the later stages anyway.
Or at least a clue to who it is.
No, they didn't even drop a clue. But I understand that people who are in the business should certainly know who he was referring to, but not the people on the street. They wouldn't know what he was talking about. No, but at the end of the day, I mean, as I've been saying, that the government still commands a convincing majority in the parliament, so they will win a vote anyway. But the opposition is so confident that with the evidence they have, they claim, at least what they claim, will be enough to shake the government to the core, but to the point that the government would not be able to survive. But I don't see any reason why we should be led to believe that is the case.
That would happen. I was going to ask you what is the highlight today so far, but doesn't sound like there's anything.
There was no highlight except a lot of accusations.
Right.
As I said earlier, that it's interesting that if you have 1/3 of the cabinet members being accused of being incompetent, right, engaging in cronyism, right, abusing of power, and having no vision and lack of good governance, then, I mean, if the opposition is right with the accusation and they can come up with good enough evidence, then it should be a good food for thought for the public. I mean, to have a second look at the government.
But most of the accusations are usually related to corruption and all these things. Did they actually mention about COVID-19 and with the vaccine procurement?
Oh, definitely. In fact, that was one of the main points made by the lead debater today, Kun Sutin Kangsang, a star MP of Pheu Thai. He spent a lot of time talking about what he sees as a failure of the government to stem the second wave of the pandemic, right?
Right.
And he put the blame squarely at the feet of the Prime Minister for not being able to stop the influx of illegal immigrants,
right,
and who are now constitute the bulk of the infected people. Yeah.
I would say all this problem is like a big elephant in the room that has been in Thailand for many years, and it's never really blow up until COVID arrived.
In fact, if you talk about the illegal immigration, right, gambling then, these are not new problems.
Right.
Then this problem did not happen under Kun Prayut's watch. These have been problems that we've been talking about for years now. So if we have to blame someone, then we have to blame every government.
Right.
That
haven't really done anything constructive. Looking forward in these next 3 days, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, who do you think will be the most interesting match to watch?
Okay, there are a few of the cabinet members who certainly stand out at the potentially the explosive targets, right?
Most likely to be grilled the most.
That's right. You have Anupong Paujinda, the Interior Minister, who has been accused of abusing state power, corruption, and of widespread and lack of good governance and incompetence. Because the Interior Minister is supposed to be in charge of a lot of security aspects of the COVID-19 problem, right? The immigration, thing like that. And of course, I mean, the same old the target, Kun Thammasat University,
right,
the Deputy Agriculture Minister, who's brushed with laws in Australia as a drug suspect. Remember that?
He was a really big headline in Australia when he became the part of the government.
I think he is seen as the weakest link of the government because of his past record.
If it's any other government, I would assume that they might, I would say, get rid of the weak link. But why do you think this government still keep him?
We're talking about Thai politics, right? And Thai politics has its own very peculiar of doing things. Kun Thammasat, I mean, despite all the weaknesses that he has turned out to be a very valuable asset
Right.
as a political sort of link for the ruling coalition party. So he has been very good at connecting with people and coercing, arm twisting people to support the government or to get things done the way that the government wants.
Arm twisting people too.
Like lobbyists, kinda.
More than lobbying, lobbying, because he has been known, and he has made no secret about this, that he's been involved in a lot of activities that border on being in gray area, right?
Right. Okay. So there will be.
Yeah,
Do you think
but-
will be anything new about Thammasat Phomphao?
Probably nothing totally new, but of course they will keep on digging the same old things to be highlighted.
Right.
But don't be too quick to judge the opposition, because this is only
The first
The
day.
first day. I would like to know what would be the accusations for Anutin as well as Nattapon Teepsuwan.
Anutin, of course, I mean what the opposition see as an utter failure in dealing with the second wave,
Right.
because contrary to general perception that the government has been doing a good job on this matter, right? The opposition believes otherwise.
Right.
They believe that the government has failed miserably in dealing with the pandemic, judging from the surge of the pandemic, and then what they see as a delay, a very, very bad delay in acquiring the vaccine for immunization of the people.
Yeah, Anutin gave the interview earlier today that he totally ready to answer anything about the vaccine, and he said that Thailand will get it pretty soon. And he still insists that it's not out of the time frame that he originally planned.
Okay. Let's see what the opposition has in their pockets, because they believe that the delay in the acquiring the vaccine is due partly to corruption,
Right.
that cronyism, that there were people involved doing, under table deals that end up delaying the vaccine acquirement here.
What about the other ministers? What would be the main accusations that the opposition MPs would say? Like, for example, like Nattapon Teepsuwan, who's the education minister.
It's quite interesting because the charges laid out by the main speaker today against Nattapon have to do with what they claim to be dishonesty, which is quite interesting, because we haven't really heard any real revelation about the activities that would consider to be dishonest on his part, right?
Right.
And he talk about him ignoring human rights. I don't know what it means.
Maybe they're talking
can
about. Maybe if I'm gonna guess, it will be about the student protests that they claim that their rights were violated by the teachers and schools and things like that.
Possibly, because that was the only issue he really has had that we know publicly, right? With the students demanding relaxation of school rules and on hairstyles and dress
Unless
codes.
he has skeleton in the closet that we don't know.
I'm sure that most of these people have skeleton in their closets, but it depends on how much the opposition can really extract these skeletons to be exposed to the public. Anyway, we have to wait 3 more days to really come up with a conclusion as to whether or not the opposition is more effective than it was the last time.
So we're just going to wait. Your prediction is at 8 p.m. today there should be something more interesting
That's
happening
right.
in the
Definitely, but this is actually an opportunity that the opposition MPs have been waiting for to grill the ruling government, whether it's MPs from Pheu Thai Party as well as Cao Kai Party as well.
Yeah.
And like you said, this is the second time already. I think people need to hear something new.
That's true.
Something deeper, something more logical, evidential.
The opposition has been trying hard to hype up the expectation of the people on this censure debate, so they better live up to their promise. They promise firework and they better deliver it.
And it seems like the MPs from Move Forward Party will have a lot of accusations, because it seems like last year they missed some of them because they have the MPs from
They use up all the time.
they used up all the time. So I think they would use from last year and then put it for this year.
Oh yeah, because General Pravit actually escaped.
Yeah.
The last
Exactly.
time he miraculously escaped the censure debate for some reason, and it's still
Right.
a big mystery as to why he wasn't touched upon. No, but what interesting is that what we fear would be a spoiler for this debate, the issue about the monarchy, right? Remember that?
Right.
There
Yeah.
was a big back and forth between the opposition and the government on whether or not they would eventually have this motion on the table,
Right.
because the government side wasn't happy that the monarchy was mentioned
Right.
as part of the debate.
Right.
But somehow there was no serious confrontation on this issue.
Not
I
yet.
think the main opposition speaker today try hard not to spoil the day with this hot issue at the beginning of the debate. So maybe tonight, tomorrow night, because we expect that the MPs that would certainly serious about wanting to touch on this issue are those from the Move Forward Party, right?
Right. I'm interested with what the opposition MPs would say about General Pravit. Would it be the corruption scandal or even like the watch scandal again?
Yeah, the wristwatches scandal would certainly be revisited, because that the real scandal that still refuses to go away.
Well, will be interesting to hear what he will respond, because he usually doesn't really respond much.
He would say,
I
"Oh,
don't
no,
I
no.
don't know.
Oh, maybe you should ask that person," sort of thing.
All right. I mean, his most classic quote was that, "I haven't done a damn thing, so how should I be accused of having done anything wrong?" I mean,
Right.
and that has come back to haunt him. I mean, until up to this minute. Right?
It will be very interesting how these ministers will defend themselves in the censure debate, because I think the opposition MPs have a lot to say in the censure debate.
How do you think the Prime Minister did today?
I don't think he did too well. I think he just dismissed all the charges against
Right.
him without really offer any explanation. He just said, "I didn't do what you have accused me of doing. If you have doubts, you go to court, sue me, use legal channels to challenge me." But he did not really address. And on the issue of the gambling dens that of which he was accused, he said, I'm not interested in gambling, and my government has been determined in dealing with the issue for months now. And he gave up some numbers, and he said something like as many as 30,000 people have been arrested for gambling, and more than 50 police officers have been penalized or transferred because of
Right.
their involvement in these illegal activities. But of course, this didn't really address the public concerns on this issue, because most people believe that these gambling dens are able to exist only with the connivance of police authorities. There's no question about it.
So how he would answer though, that will make people feel that he actually more serious than the previous government in taking care of this?
I'm not quite sure what he can say or do to give that kind of assurance. I think the facts should speak for themselves.
Right.
The action, and whether or not from this point on there will be more gambling dens raided, and whether or not this issue will re-emerge again in the future.
Or maybe if he can show some kind of statistic, whether how many people got arrested, how many gambling den got raided compared to previous government, more or less. Maybe that would help.
No, but yeah, despite a lot of mistakes that he made today, Seri Pisut was able to give us some clear picture as to how these gambling dens, the network, operate. And his conclusion is that these gambling dens are able to be around because, of course, with the support, with the connivance of police authorities. But that's not the end of the story, because police authorities alone are not able to really keep these things alive. So the police also are answerable to the powers that be at higher level. So of course politicians, cabinet members, or he even mentioned that even Prime Minister should be also ask themselves about this problem, whether or not they can do anything more to deal with them. Yeah.
Right.
Great.
That will be an interesting issue to see whether this government can do anything or next government can do anything about it, because it has been an ongoing problem for so many years in Thailand. And I think that's wrap up this edition of Thai PBS World. We'll come back to see you again tomorrow and of course give you a recap of the censure debate of the second day, and hopefully there'll be something more exciting happen in the prime time today.
Definitely. And that wraps up tonight's edition of Thai PBS World Tonight. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ